My name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, February 28th, the last day of February. Tomorrow is March 1st. This is a channel about stitching. I usually say it's about cross stitching, but my focus piece for February is not actually cross stitch, so this is a channel about stitching. So if you are new to my channel, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and watching, and thank you for sharing in the progress on the pieces that I'm currently working on. It has been a relatively sunny day here, but as true to form, while I'm pulling all the stuff together to show in my video, you know, it started out really great, sunny, I went perfect. It's clouding over, so it's not as bright as it was when I started to get ready to film this, but anyway, neither here nor there. But look, we're back in the purple room. That can only mean one thing. Things are starting to get warmer where I am. Now, don't kid yourself. There's snow on the ground. I could see that there's going to be snow on the ground for months yet to come. For me, the thing is that the temperatures are warm enough and sunny enough that this glorious room turns into something really warm. Now, right now it's totally comfortable. Friday was the day I was chatting with a friend of mine where I'm just like, the sunroom is glorious today. If it could be like this on Sunday, it would be awesome. So not as glorious as it was on Friday, but you know, again, it's getting to those, I'm cold all the time, so, you know, when I can have this room and have it be really lovely and warm, and I just get excited when this room gets inhabitable again after, you know, minus bajillion degree weather. And again, I should not be complaining. Dear people in the US who are suffering from the after effects of storms and really chilly weather that you are not prepared for in a variety of ways, I shouldn't be complaining about anything. Anyway, with that, let's get on with the show. There's lots to talk about. As always, I have lots of things to say. Sorry about that. Okay, let's deal with a couple of things from comments from last week. So thank you so much for the comments on last week's video. As I say, I always, please feel free to leave comments in the comment section below. Comments, questions, topics, all of that. Love getting the comments because it actually makes me feel like we're actually having a conversation as opposed to me just, you know, blathering on for forever and a day. So a couple of things. Charlotte, your comment about hardanger and wanting to try hardanger, yes. If you can do all of those other things, honey man, you made it through the camel. If you can get through the camel, you can do hardanger. The only thing about hardanger when you're first starting is before you cut, check, 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 and then go ahead and cut, and then just be surprised when you go like, huh, that worked out. Or at least that's how it was for me. So I have done hardanger. I took a class at my local needlework shop because I felt I needed some help with that. I have a friend who does hardanger extraordinary, like, so she enters her stuff into fairs and she wins ribbons and all that kind of stuff. So I just really felt for learning I should, you know, take a class. And I'm at the point now, if I work on hardanger and I have questions on anything, I'm going to my friend Esther, and she can straighten me out in no time flat. The Lent projects, so I liked the comments, so it's not just me that does Lent projects. So thank you for sharing that. Some of you shared which Lent projects you were actually working on, and so Rachel Q, yes, I too have the His Name is Jesus piece. If you like that one, the other one that they have that I really enjoy, so His Name is Jesus is a free chart from Joyful Expressions. You have to sign up for their newsletter. I will put a link to that in the notes below if you are interested in looking at that piece. The other one of theirs that I have that I really like is the Christmas one, of course. Which is called For Unto Us. And it's got the verse from Isaiah in the shape of a tree in navy and red and green and gold and, you know, my colors. So anyway, so that's the other one of theirs that I really like. And Rachel, yes, Rachel Q also has a Flosstube channel, so she is on my list to catch up because I'm behind on hers. All right. Okay, so that's responding to questions. My topic for this week is Freda's Fancy February wrap-up. So we are at the end of the month. So my topic, we're actually going to do the wrap-up at the beginning of the video, which is unusual for me. But we're going to do the wrap-up because it has to do with all the things that I've been stitching. So doing it at the end would just be a repeat. So here comes the topic. What have I accomplished in the month of February? So as I said, my focus piece for this month is a piece called the Banquet by Freda's Fancy Stitching. It is a canvas work piece. Again, that goes back to my comment at the beginning that says I can't really say that this is a channel about cross-stitching because my focus piece for this month is not cross-stitch related. It is stitching related, just not cross-stitch related. So here is the what the final piece is going to look like when it's all completed. So that's when all 8 parts. So this is an 8-part chart. It's called the Banquet because it has a veritable feast of stitches. And we're going to talk about that in just a second here. So that's what my focus piece for February has been. And my goal for this week was to get part 4 complete. And I am happy to report that I was successful. So here is my piece. So this is parts 1 through 4, utterly complete. And I have to admit, this last week while I was working on part 4, I'm going to say Wednesday or Thursday night when I was working on it, I was like, oh, I've really enjoyed working on this. And it has been fun. I haven't done a canvas work piece in a really long time, and it was really great to work on this. Again, I chose this one because I really liked this one, and I've liked it since it's come out. Once we got to the end of the mystery and it was no longer a mystery, that's when I really liked it. So yeah, I'm really glad I started this. I'm happy with my progress this month. Now, it is not complete. I am, about halfway. So 4 out of the 8 charts complete. So again, I'm happy with my progress. I love how it's coming together. I will say I'm continuing to revisit whether I need to rework that metallic. So I did go on to, so the metallic that is called for in the original color is Kreinik number 8 braid in 86C. Now, with everything that's going on with Kreinik, so I did go directly onto the Kreinik website, and the Kreinik company has generally been really good about posting on its website about when they're having to accommodate supply chain issues and all that kind of stuff. And so I can say 86C and number 8 braid does not show up on their list. Now, I'm not 100% clear as to whether or not it has been fully discontinued or if it's just a case that you can't get it right now. So I don't know about that. So I have 86C in other versions. I have it in a number 4 braid. I just don't have it in a number 8 braid. So I'm debating what to do about that. I don't have to solve that problem right now. That particular color. So this color that I'm using is the substitute from the chart. Now it is not similar in color to the 86C. The 86C is a green as opposed to the silver that's in there. Now, I don't dislike the silver. Again, part of it is because I've seen the models and I've seen other versions, and so I'm, again, debating. Do I need to have that answer today? No. We'll see what happens. But, so I feel quite accomplished. I'm happy where I've ended up with this at the end of this month. I feel that's decent progress for the month of February. 4 out of 8 charts complete, which I'm happy about. That will help my Stitch from Stash budget, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, and plans. We'll talk about this again in plans. But again, so there we go. There it is, the Banquet by Freda's Fancy Stitching. This is parts 1 through 4 complete. So yes, happy with that. Thrilled that I worked on that this month. Thrilled that that was actually a piece that was in my rotation, part of my 2021 plans. Yeah, I'm really happy with that decision. That was great. Okay, so what else have I been working on? I have been working on the Never-Ending Nativity, the Holy Family. So Mary has been my focus for this week, because I'm trying to get Mary complete, and then that also will come up in the Stitch from Stash discussion as well. So how did I do this week? Well, I thought I did pretty well. So here's where we're at. So we only have a little bit down here, and the top of her head and her headscarf, and the back stitching that comes along with this. So I'm going to hold the chart back up again. So there you go. So I think I made this comment last week that the next set of colors that I was working on were really going to fill it in, and I think it's really filled in. So I'm hoping that this week I will be able to finish the cross stitching for this. Now the interesting thing, we're going to backtrack in just a second. There's a part here that has not been stitched, and it's one of those cases where I think the symbol in the chart is incorrect. So this is probably going to be the last thing to get filled in, and I'm just going to see how it's all working out together. But I was actually going to finish, that because I was like, okay, I've only got these other couple pieces. I'm just going to fill that in. And then I looked at the color and went, I don't think that's the right color. But maybe it works out once, maybe, I don't know. So it's going to be the last thing I stitch. But yeah, happy with my progress. I think that's coming along. Now, I made this comment to a friend of mine where I was like, okay, I'm going to finish Mary, and then that part's going to be finished, and I can move on, and the bottom part will be finished. It's not finished. It's not finished. It's not finished. So here in the chart, you can just see you have all of these little speckles here. So in the chart, the way that it is called for, those are, I'm calling them the random stitches of Kreinik in the middle of nowhere. Now, given that I am doing this piece on 36 count antique white linen, if you have to drag your Kreinik along behind to get all these random things in there, that the carrying of the Kreinik is going to show through, and I'm not going to enjoy that. So, and consistent with what's been done on the 2 panels on either side of this, those have been replaced. They're not being done with Kreinik, they're being done with Mill Hill beads. And so that's, so even when I get Mary completely stitched and outlined and back stitched and all those gloriousness, this chart will not be complete. Why? Because I have to put the beads in, and I won't put the beads in until all of the rest of the stitching on this center panel is complete, because in this case, I do beading at the end. And there's a lot of stitching left at the top of this big panel. So I don't want to put all these beads in down here and then have to roll up on my scroll frame. I'm not going to do that. So beading is going to come at the end. But that means I can't do the beading until all of the stitching on the top part of the panel is complete. Yeah. Anywho. It'll be fun. We're making progress. Hey man, I got the camel complete. Mary's almost complete, but this chart will not be complete for a while yet because of the beading. That was a horrible realization, because I was like, I just need to finish Mary and it's complete. And then I looked at it and went, you need to finish Mary and the beading. So not as closer to complete. You know, every stitch put in is a stitch closer to complete. So we're closer to complete than we were before, and that's a positive step, and that's great. It's not as close to complete as I would like it to be, because, you know, I would like it to be complete. Anyway, so that's the progress that I've made on the Never Ending Nativity this week. I have also been working on my Lent Piece, which is Jerusalem by Thea Gouverneur. So the kit. And so I am working on this building here, and I remembered to look at the chart and make sure I got the name of this. So this is the Church of All Nations that I'm working on. Again, so I started this was a center start for me, just because all of the empty space counting, blah, 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 center. Now, I have generally been doing better about keeping within my time frame. Did I follow through exactly how I was planning on working on the stitching on this particular piece this week? No, of course not. It's me. Why? Now, once I've stated a plan, it's not like I'm going to follow it, right? So, where did I get to on this gigantic, ginormous piece? So it's coming together. So the funny part for you, a little bit for me too, is so this is where, so I'm working on page 3. This is a 10-page chart. I'm working on page 3. So here's the middle working up. This is page 3. So my plan was I was only going to work on page 3. Okay, so I did page 3 and then a few stitches, you know, sub 15, because it worked out that way. But then when so I was really going to try to fill this in, but it's really spotty. And the colors move over and all sorts of things. And I just went, I'm only working on this for Lent this year. Let's see if I can't make some progress. And so the last couple of days when I've been working on it, so I worked on this part here, because it's just 2 colors all the way across, like, you know, great. Still a little bit of counting, but that's okay. So I filled that in, so I was happy with that. And as you move up, there's some bigger blocks of color. And so I've made the decision, because I would really like to leave Lent feeling like I've made good progress on this. And don't get me wrong, I was happy with my progress last week, because I'm like, holy smokes, it turned into something that looked like something. Which when I started working on it, given how many colors are actually included in this, I wasn't sure that that was going to be the case. But there are some bigger blocks of color up here. It also means, you know, because it's bigger blocks, you don't have to do quite as much counting. You pick up some speed when you're doing that. So my plan for this week is I'm So every day when I work on this, I'm going to choose a color and I'm going to work on that color and try to fill in the blocks of color of that up top. And if that color happens to be used down here, I will, you know, finish off a length of thread. Yeah, I also, there's 8 stitches in here from page 8. Why? Because I got to the end of this thing and I still had some thread, and I'm at that point where I'm still nervous about how much thread is in my kit because I'm just starting out and I don't know how it's going. And I went, I can't waste the thread that came with the kit. I know it's DMC, but they won't give you the color numbers. And I went, you can't waste it, even though I should be able to figure it out on my own. You can't waste it. So off we straggled 8 stitches into page number 8 because I had the floss. Anyway, so I'm happy with how this is coming. So again, my plan for this week is I'm going to start to work on the top part of this. So yeah, come back next week. I myself am very interested to see what this looks like a week from now. Just because this top part has less finicky. Like, you wouldn't think it, but there's a lot of colors in here. The other thing that I wanted to talk about this is coverage. So this is a great little piece to talk about coverage because, so this is a kit. I'm following the instructions on the kit. This is 36 count linen, and the instructions are to stitch using 1 strand of DMC floss over 2 linen threads of fabric. And this has dark DMC colors. And I have said this before on this channel that I do find the darker the color, whether it's 310 black or 939, which is a really dark navy blue, 3371, that with DMC, when you get into those really dark colors, that the coverage is not great. And so even on, you know, 32 or 28, there's always discussion in the groups about, you know, the coverage just isn't there. You don't get full coverage. And so I will say that, yeah, so if, again, this will be hard for me to see. See how I do. So if I hold this up really close, you know, okay, you'll be able to see, do I think that this is giving full coverage of those dark colors? I don't know about that. But the key to remember when you're doing any of those things where you go like, I don't think I'm getting the coverage, is to stand back. Yes, you know, when we're working on this, we are right up in the face of the stitching, right? We are really, you know, we're looking at this very closely, whether with magnification or due to great eyesight. We are looking very closely at our work. But, you know, okay, don't forget, this is a ginormous piece, right? Again, like the whole scroll rod doesn't fit into the frame, which means when you put it on a wall, that coverage is fine, right? Nobody standing back and looking at this will go like, wow, those dark threads look a little sparse on that fabric. It's fine. And, you know, even for me, and I noticed it when I did the video last week, when I was looking back at it as it was loading, that I was like, you know, I'd had a moment saying like, oh, I don't think the coverage is great. It's a little suboptimal, but it's the kit. You're doing what the kit says. When I held it up in the video, I'm like, now that looks fine. So even for me, note to self, stand back and look at this because I think it will be fine. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how this is coming along. I can't wait to work on this top part of the church and see what happens this next week. Yeah, we are, I don't know, we're probably about a quarter of the way through Lent. So, you know, 75% left to go. Okay, because I'm weird and I do the math and all that kind of stuff. So March 11th is when we're at 50% of the way through Lent. So it'll be interesting to see in the video. That's a Thursday, so the video following that, it'll be interesting to see. It will be fascinating for me to see what this looks like when we're halfway through Lent. Anyway, so there's another 11 days worth of stitching before we're halfway through Lent. Again, is this going to be finished in Lent this year? No. Is it? Anyway, we'll talk about this in a minute. Again, wait till you hear. Anyway, so happy with that. So that is my stitching for this week. Again, I felt it was a very productive week. Got what I accomplished my goal on the Banquet. Happy with my progress on my Lent piece. Mary's coming along, other than the disheartening moment when I figured out that when I finished Mary that chart wasn't complete. But anyway. So yeah, happy with that progress. Okay, so let's talk about Stitch from Stash. That's not true. Before we do Stitch from Stash, and I've said this to a friend of mine, I even have a note here to talk about it. It's the very first note that I have here to talk about this. And we are 26 minutes into the video and I have not talked about it. And I've been meaning to talk about this all the way along. Okay. So this was my new start for February. And again, I have had this note to make this comment every video. So even from the first video of February, congratulations. We were on video number 4 for February. I'm finally going to make this comment. When you are starting a new chart, one of the best things that you can do is go to the designer's website and look to see if there's an errata page or a corrections page, or sometimes they're even called oops, which means there's chart corrections. Now, I didn't do this when I had first started stitching on the Banquet. That's fine. I was doing something else and was on Freda's website and went, I should look under the errata since she does have one. And there was a correction for, the funny thing is I looked at it, it was for one of the charts that I had already completed by the time I looked at it. And, you know, read the correction and I went, I think I did. So even now I'm a little fuzzy about whether it was the main chart was right, but the square specific was incorrect, or if the square specific one was, anyway, there's something about one of them. Anyway, it turns out I had stitched it correctly, period. So didn't have any negative ramifications for me. On the Banquet, there's 2 errors. And again, so I don't know if it's also depending on, you know, the charts that she's already got printed versus whether you're getting the PDF, and I'm not clear on that either. But I have a note to self that when I get to part number 8, that technically there is another note on her website about a potential chart change that I may need to make sure I'm paying attention to. So the reason why I'm saying this is really before you get too heavily into it, because I had a momentary heart attack when I went, oh my goodness, I've already finished that section. Sorry, what's the problem in the chart? Anyway, it was all fine. It all worked out fine for me. But note to self, just go to the designer website. Now, some designers have those comments on their webpage. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to pick on this lovely gem. So I will say in a number of spots as I've been stitching through these charts, I think that there are errors in the chart. And so, for example, so Serendipity Designs does not have an error page or a correction page or any of those things. So I am doing things where I'm comparing, you know, I'm comparing the picture on the front of the chart to what the chart actually says. And in some cases, I am following the chart and ignoring the front cover of the chart, the picture on the chart. And sometimes I'm ignoring the chart and following the picture. So, for example, in here, I think there's an error in the chart. Again, it's going to be really hard to see, but there's this little bit of an orange color here, which is actually the same color that was used in Joseph's robe. But it's way over here. Now, it's not in the same tonality, like, so there's a part where it's like, maybe it has to do with the creche, and it does not, because it's in the wrong color family. So that's an example where I went to the cover photo, held it under my magnifying light, and went, what in their model, what did they stitch? And so what they stitched in their model is different than what the chart says. And I went, in that case, I went with what the picture looked like. Over here, again, I think the symbol that's in this little chunk here is the incorrect symbol. But I'm holding judgment until I get the other colors in here. Maybe it will work out. Anyway, check back next week and see what I end up doing with that. Because that, again, that could be one where I go with the chart, or I could be going, you know, I've looked at the front cover and I'm like, we'll see. Check back. I'll probably have a comment about that next week. But, so again, so Serendipity Designs does not have a corrections page to say, hey, on the chart of the Holy Family, you know, in spot X, it needs a correction. So they don't have that. So I'm winging it. I know when I was putting my 2021 plans together, my December piece, there is a correction for that chart, and I do need to email and she straight up says on her website, email me for the corrected page. And I have not done that yet, and that's on my plans to do this week, because I keep talking about it and saying, just pull it together. Okay, so that has been on my to talk about list, saying, step number 1, when you're starting a new chart, check the designer's webpage to see if they have an errors page or a correction page or whatever. It may save you some questions before you get going. All right, there we go. Whew, only took 4 weeks for me to bring that part up. All right, stitch from stash. That's not true. Let's do Stashquisitions first, because then stitch from stash will make more sense. So, okay, let's do, I'm going to show you, and I made this comment before. Again, this is my first time back in this room, so I don't actually have my table set up here, so I'm having to reach a little further. So I said I was going to dole out, so I picked up an order from my LNS, which stands for Local Needlework Shop. So thank you for the viewer who said, sorry, what does the acronym stand for? We are a very acronym heavy community. Yes, if I do that again, yeah, put that in the comments. I replied to your comment, but yes, LNS, Local Needlework Shop. So I placed an order with them. Okay, I placed several orders with them last year. And for a variety of issues, you know, the stuff, the components of those orders, which were paid for in 2020, are straggling in. Which, again, which is totally fine, because all of those things from those orders are, for the most part, are not part of my 2021 stitching plans. That's a whole other kettle of fish. But, so I'm going to show just a couple of the charts that came in with that particular order. So this is called Little Bits of Christmas by the Drawn Thread. I have quite a few Drawn Thread charts. This has been on, I've actually had this on, in my family we do a Christmas wish list, and in my case, it's my Christmas/birthday wish list. So this has actually been on my wish list for a couple of years, and clearly no one from my family is buying this for me, so I decided I was just going to get it myself. Forget them. So the interesting thing about this is that there are all these different blocks and they are all the same size. So they've given you, like, you can combine them now, other than this one, because Christmas is clearly not the same size as these. But you can combine them in any format you want. So you could take Christmas out and you could replace it with, you know, some of these word ones and reorder the ones in here, because they're uniform in size, each of those blocks. Included in this chart, which again, I've seen people working on this, but I haven't necessarily heard them talk about that. Included in the chart, I think, are 8 different borders, so that you could take each of these blocks and make them into an ornament with a border around it. Now, do you have to put a border around it? Could you just stitch the wreath and make that into an ornament? Sure. But I thought it was really interesting that she has actually, as part of this chart, there are 8 different borders, which will, again, because all of these blocks are uniform in size, you can, you know, you could do all of these as a series of ornaments and use the same border around all of them. You could do a series of ornaments and you could use a different border for every single one of them, because she has provided those borders as part of this chart. So again, that's an aspect of this chart that I didn't realize until I purchased it and opened it and had a look at it. But yeah, I've loved this one. And so last year I decided I was getting it for myself, because clearly nobody was going to get it for me. So one of the other charts that came in as part of that, and again, it's because I ended up looking at somebody in the universe had been working on a chart by Art to Heart. And so Art to Heart is the Just Another Button company's, when they do their own designs, it's under, as far as I can tell, is under this Art to Heart brand name. But it really is, so it's Just Another Button company chart. And so this is called Bittersweet Pumpkins. And I really liked it because it's fallish without being too orange. Now, so it's hard to see all of the buttons in here, but there's a lot of buttons that are factored into here. And when you order this chart, it comes with the buttons. So there are all of the buttons that come with it to go on that chart. So yeah, I really like that. Anyway, so that's so there were 2, when I put the order in with my LNS, there were 2 Art to Heart charts that I ordered. One was a Christmas one, and then there was this one. For whatever reason, 12 things going on, who knows, doesn't really matter. The Christmas one came in last year, so that's in a video probably sometime in December, could be even as early as November. As well, you can also just go to the Just Another Button company website. I will put that link in the notes below, and you can have a look at their charts to see if anything appeals to you. Now, there is more from that order that I picked up, but as I said before, I am doling it out over a number of videos for a variety of reasons. So those 2 are part of the order that I picked up. That's part of the 2020. It's important that I say that, because these don't count towards my Stitch from Stash budget, which is getting to be a bit of a thing. Okay, more recently, I did buy, I know, Stitch from Stash. Anyway, I was doing really well up till now. I was having a chat with my friend and said, we always knew I was going to have a problem as we got into March, because there's always a ton of new releases. So the other chart that I picked up, quite frankly, last night, is this one from Fat Quarter Shop called Stronger Together. So they did this chart as part of Black History Month. And it's what's happening in the month of February 2021 is that I think it's 100% of the proceeds from this chart. So for the entire month, every chart that has been purchased, 100% of those proceeds are being donated to the United Negro College Fund to help fund the United Negro College. Anyway, as far as I'm going, it's to help get scholarships. And with everything that was going on in the U.S., and I had a moment. So I like the colors in this chart. Might change a couple of things. Stay tuned on that. This is not in my 2021 plans. I'm not sure if this chart if you're going to be able to get this chart past February 28th, and I couldn't find clarity on that in the stuff that I was looking at. And I do know that there are fat quarter shop charts that they use as fundraisers, and once the fundraising period is over, the chart goes away and you can't get it anymore. So I wasn't sure what the timeline on this was, so I decided, since I liked it and I've seen people stitching on it, better to get it while you can get it. And you know, even if you can get it in March, for me the driving factor was get it in February, because I wanted to make sure that my $10 was going towards the donation. So I pulled the trigger on this one. This is not part of my 2021 plans at the moment. Again, as I said, there's a couple things I'm planning on potentially changing and reworking and all that kind of stuff, but I wanted to make sure that I had the chart. So this will count towards my spending for the month of February for my Stitch from Stash budget. Now we're going to talk about Stitch from Stash. So I haven't done all of the math. I was reworking some of the stuff on the Banquet, and I had a couple of questions, so I think I'm actually going to have to go in and I was, again, reading the rules. And I think anyway, so I'm going to have to ask a couple of questions before I can come back with what my real totals are for February, but I should have those totals for you for next week. Regardless of what's going on, I will be exiting March with a positive balance in my budget. So I came into the month of February, well, we'll go over the numbers next week. So I came into the month of February in the black. I have successfully completed 4 charts from the Banquet, and I have successfully completed the camel. So 5 charts completed in the month of February, which I will get to add as credits. I reported last week that I had bought 3 charts. Yes, 3 charts that will count against that. This week I've bought a 4th, so that will count against my budget. But again, I haven't blown out my budget technically yet. So I'm ending February in the black, which is good. March. So I'm going to do a little bit of how Stitch from Stash is a great plant. I have a lot of stash. Part of the reason for doing Stitch from Stash is I have a lot of stash, and I figured if I did Stitch from Stash, it would make me really focus on how much stitching I can get accomplished. And I think it's great. I think it's working out really well for me. Is it 100% Stitch from Stash? No, but it's a training program. It's a training program. So I think I'm making progress on that. The part that I did not plan out very well when I was coming up with my 2021 plans and the Stitch from Stash plan is that I'm working on these projects that are large. So January was great because I did Lady Scarlet's Journey, all 3 charts, and completed them in the month of January. February, I have finished 4 out of 8 charts on the Banquet. Don't get me wrong, positive, really happy with my progress, thrilled that I started, other than that one episode where I miscounted by the 1 thread, have loved working on that. Loved it. So glad that I started doing that. that's a win. Win, win, win. Lent, I don't know what year this is going to be completed in. Not full coverage, so it doesn't necessarily count towards the way that you can claim pages. And again, that's one of my clarifying things. Am I close to a page finish on Lent on Jerusalem? No. So, you know, much ado about whatever. Anyway, and, you know, making progress on Mary, which is great. But again, until I get the beading done, I can't claim it as a complete. Anyway, so then I was thinking about my 2021 plans. And again, so here's the lighting's getting a little bit because the sun's coming back out again. The 2021 plans, and I was looking at them saying, I did not plan this out horrifically well because I was going through all of my other months and said, I don't know that over the course of those months I'm going to be able to finish those charts. Some, like one I think is a for sure yes. There's another month where I think I'm probably have a pretty good shot at that. You know, there are some months where I flat out know I'm going to start this because I want to get it started. I want to get it started. Am I going to finish it in that month? No. There are some bigger projects coming along over the course of 2021. So it will be fascinating for me to see how that works. But it means in terms of being able to get credits into my Stitch from Stash budget, I don't know that I'm going to be getting a lot of credits for finishes because my projects are so large. So didn't plan that out very well, which means I'm going to talk about plans. So I have been starting to work on my 2022 plans. You know, simple things like, am I planning on doing a New Year, New Start? Absolutely. You know, again, was chatting with a friend of mine and I sort of said, you know, planning on doing a New Year, New Start, and rattled off, you know, 6 concepts of what I could use as my New Year, New Start. And she, for every single one of them, went, oh yeah, that would be great. But again, some of those pieces are large charts. So apparently I have a thing about the large charts. So I'm now rethinking some of my 2022 plans about how do I fit in some smaller charts, because again, the Banquet, I'm not as far as I can tell, based on my plans for 2021, the Banquet is not coming out again this year. So the next time we have a shot at seeing the Banquet is maybe if I do a year-end, you know, whip parade wrap up something video. But in terms of actual stitching, I'm not planning on stitching the Banquet. I'm not planning on touching it again for the rest of 2021. We're at February 28th, and I'm not planning on stitching on that piece again for the rest of the year. Which means when you look at the other plans for 2021, I'm going to be ending 2021 with a lot of whips, which again is factoring into some of my thinking about what I'm doing. Now, there's a couple of months in there where I still have the ability to change what I'm doing in them, and I'm thinking about that. So plans are good. You have to roll with the times. Some of those plans may be changing. Check back later. But I am starting to work on my 2022 plans. The other thing that's factoring into those plans is, of course, we're looking at Needlework Expo and the charts that are coming out. And I've done really well. I still have not put in my final order with my LNS. So I did my first order because they will combine. I put in my first order, which were really some Jeanette Douglas ones that I really, again, I had seen the models a while ago and was just like, must have. So that order has gone in. I am for sure going to be making a second order. I just haven't quite decided. And as I said, I need to, now I'm really having, now that I've clued into my problem, I really have to monitor my budget. Again, which is a really good exercise. I really have to monitor my budget so I can be successful in my goal for doing Stitch from Stash. So one of the things from Stitch from Stash is you do not have to end every month in the black. I would like to end them every month in the black. You do not have to. So Stitch from Stash, the group that I'm a part of that is linked in the notes below, they run it in 2 chunks. They do January through June and July through December. So it's really, you know, if you get to the end of June and you are in the black, that's, you've been successful. You know, and again, I am doing Stitch from Stash to try to rein in some of my spending, given the stash that I currently have, given the size of some of my projects. Again, these are not projects that I'm knocking out, you know, 1 a week. Now, don't get me wrong, 4 weeks in February, successfully managed to completely stitch 4 charts. You know, the Banquet is an 8-chart, is a series of 8 charts to complete that piece. So again, I feel very successful, thrilled that I worked on the Banquet, loved doing it, you know, have made a mental note saying, you must work on another canvas piece in 2022. Part of it is going to be the Banquet. So there's another 4 charts left to go. So I go, there's another month's worth of stitching on the Banquet for me to get that finished. Which again, when you put it into the context of everything else, my stash, other plans, 12 other things, you know, there's another month of stitching on that piece for me based on the pace with which I accomplished the first 4 charts. So again, part of this plan and the Stitch from Stash is to actually sort of go, what can you actually accomplish? Not that you shouldn't, again, am I still shopping for things? Yes. Am I trying to be a little more behaved? There are a few charts that I've looked at where I think I would really like them, but I've actually had moments where I've said, part of it's the training program where you go like, compared to, you know, X chart in your stash, would you rather stitch on the chart you already have in your stash, or would you rather do this new one? And that's been a really good exercise for me, because there's been ones like, if I have to choose between the two, I actually like the one that I have in my stash better, and I would rather stitch on that. So that's been a really helpful tool for me as I've been looking at all the Needlework Expo charts that are coming out and saying like, ooh, and don't get me wrong, there's lots where I'm like, ooh, I would like to stitch that. Ooh, I would like to stitch that. Ooh, I would like to stitch that. But I've also done really well about saying, okay, do you like that more than you like charts you currently have in your stash that you have not stitched? And that's actually reined in some spending and some, you know, like, no, if I really, when I think about it in that context, I go, don't get me wrong, love that chart, would like to stitch it someday, but in terms of ranking that chart, it's probably not in the top 10 charts, and in some cases, not even the top 10 charts for that designer alone, which again, puts a little bit more of a spin on it. Doesn't mean at some point I won't necessarily get the chart, but for right now, it's been really good about helping me saying, you don't probably, you know, again, if it's a limited edition chart, that's a different kettle of fish. So again, one of the things that I'm having the debate about is the exclusive traditional stitches Blackbird Designs chart. Now, the problem is she's also shown a picture of the chart using the Amy Mitten fibers. And from my perspective, and again, cameras and things and 12 other things, it actually looks, to me, it looks really different, and I really like that one. So I haven't pulled the pin on it yet because I need to make some of my final decisions for my Needlework Expo things. I'm leaving some flex in there, but that one might be coming home. And again, so that's a chart that it, you know, they're doing that whole wave system when they can get stuff out and all that kind of stuff, and which is totally fine by me because it gives me a couple more months to maybe, you know, finish something. Anyway, All right, that is my Stitch from Stash sort of report. Those are my plans behind the scenes. I'm actively working on my 2022 plans, so my plans for this week is tomorrow is March 1st. So March 1st means new month, new start. So I have my project already, you know, hauled it out, was looking at some things. That one's in great shape. It is ready for me to start tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to starting it. Again, it's a piece that I have loved for years and have had in my stash for years, and I'm finally going to start it tomorrow, and I'm really excited about that too. So new month, new start. For all of you doing March Madness, so March Madness, there's multiple different ways of doing this. So some people are doing March Madness the same way that people do Mania in May. So some people are starting 31 new starts in the month of March as March Madness. There are also people who are doing March Madness because so not sporty, but I do recognize March Madness is a basketball thing. Blah, 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 playoff, something, something, basketball. I've now exhausted all of my March Madness sports actual knowledge. I don't think it's occurring this year because of COVID, but I don't really know that either. Blah, blah, blah. In normal times, March Madness, basketball, something, playoff stuff. And so there are people that are doing sort of a playoff tiering thing. And so I actually saved down the picture of somebody's, I want to say it's a grid, but that's not really what it is. And so they're starting off the month for the first 16 days of March. They've got 16 whips. And so every day they'll work on one of those whips, and they're going to count how many stitches they get into each whip. And she's got them paired up in a set of, 8 sets of 2 to get to the 16. And so in each thing, the winner that will go advance to the next round is the whip that has more stitches. And again, so it's one whip per day. However many stitches goes into that whip determines who moves forward. And so you winnow down, so it goes from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2 to 1. So I was like going, wow. And I was like, and again, because I'm going to end this year with a lot of whips. So I'm having as I'm doing my 2022 plans, I'm going like, ooh, maybe I should do March Madness. And so so that's one version of March Madness. I was watching Dina from Half Stitch Cross Stitch, and if you should go check her out, she's fantastic. She's doing her own version of March Madness, where she's, instead of starting with 16, she's starting with 8. And so it's a little less clear to me. I think she's working on all 8 the first week. So I think she's doing, it's like she has to put 200 stitches into each of the 8 projects. And at the end of the week, when she's worked on all 8 of them, she will look at them and she will say which are the 4 that are closest to a finish. And then those 4 progress. And then the following week, she will only have 4 whips, and she has to do 400 stitches on each of those 4 whips. And then at the end of that week, she chooses the 2 that are closest to a finish at that point. Anyway, so again, so that's another version of March Madness. And so I was like, that's interesting too. So again, since I'm working behind the scenes, working on my 2022 plans, I thought that was a fascinating. So I think I might try some version of March Madness, not in 2021, but next year. But again, it will overlap with Lent, and I'm still working out how I feel about doing Lent plus something else. And I'm doing better, still having a little bit of struggles, but again, we're about a quarter of the way through Lent. So maybe by the end of Lent, I will have actually gotten better at being able to work on more than one project in a day. Who knows? Check back. We'll see how we do. And with that, I'm just looking over at my piles. let's read the notes, make sure I actually covered the stuff. I think that's the end for this week's video. So I hope everybody is staying safe, staying healthy. I hope you're finding some time to stitch. Check out the Needlework Expo. Lots of exciting things coming out. Again, I get really excited in March just because there's a plethora of new charts that are coming out, and that's always exciting to see. Traditional Stitches, exclusive Blackbird design. Might want to check that out. A link to that will also be in the notes below. And with that, I hope everybody has a great week. Who knows? Come back next week. Maybe we'll be back in the room. It'll be lovely again. Yeah, it was lovely being back here, but see, there's that, you know, the sun is peeking out again. Anyway, have a great week. Be safe. Stay healthy. Find some time to stitch, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.